according to Newsweek, a report has been issued that a resolution for the impeachment of Donald Trump has been issued in Texas. Let's take a look at the reporting from Newsweek. The article, ladies and gentlemen, is titled Donald Trump Impeachment Resolution Issued in Texas. And ladies and gentlemen, the article reads, the Libertarian Party of Travis County, Texas, has passed a resolution calling for President Donald Trump to be impeached, accusing him of issuing lawless, dictatorial pronouncements that, quote, violate the constitutional separation of powers. The resolution cited the Trump administration's inability to get Kilmar Abrigo Garcia returned from an El Salvador prison, threats to send American citizens to foreign prisons, and its deportations of legal U.S. residents, quote, due to their political viewpoints. Newsweek contacted the Libertarian Party for comment on Wednesday via email outside of regular office hours. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to figure out why it matters. Ladies and gentlemen, why it matters is because over the past few weeks, the Trump administration has said it is unable to secure the release of Garcia, a 29-year-old father of two who was deported to a prison in El Salvador, in what the Justice Department has termed an, quote, administrative error, unquote, and revoked the visas of foreign students it accuses of holding extremists' views, though many deny this. During a press conference on Monday alongside El Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, Trump said he would be, quote, all for, unquote, sending some criminals with U.S. citizenship to El Salvador, and was recorded saying, quote, you gotta build about 5 more places. It's not big enough, unquote. In March of Stefan Lindbergh, who runs the Varieties of Democracy project out of the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, warned he might not classify the U.S. as a full democracy in 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out what to know about this. Ladies and gentlemen, what to know about this is on Tuesday, the Libertarian Party of Travis County passed a resolution calling for, quote, the impeachment of President Donald J. Trump and his removal from office, unquote. It accused the president of having taken, quote, an oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, unquote, with no obvious intention of doing so. The resolution noted the case of Garcia, who was deported from Maryland to his home country of El Salvador in early April following what the Justice Department called an, quote, administrative error, unquote. Garcia has been dispatched to a high-security prison in El Salvador despite having no criminal convictions. The U.S. government alleges he has links to MS-13, M313, which, ladies and gentlemen, is supposed to be MS-13, not M313. A major crime came, but Garcia's wife denies this, and his lawyers say, quote, U.S. government has never produced an iota of evidence to support this unfounded accusation, unquote. On April 10, the Supreme Court, in a 9-0 ruling, ordered the Trump administration to, quote, facilitate, unquote, the return of Garcia to the United States. However, on Monday, Trump's team said it didn't have the power to return him, while Buechel said, quote, how can I return him to the United States? Like if I smuggle him into the United States? Of course not. Of course I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous, unquote. Buechel added, quote, we are not very fond of releasing terrorists, unquote, though Garcia hasn't been convicted of any offenses in either the U.S. or El Salvador. The Libertarian Party of Travis County resolution who also says Trump stated that he wants to send U.S. citizens to foreign prisons where they would certainly have no due process of law, unquote. This came after Trump said he would support sending U.S. criminals to El Salvador during his press conference with Bukele on Monday. According to Inside Higher Ed, at least 147 foreign students have had their visas to study in the U.S. revoked by the Trump administration, including individuals involved in pro-Palestinian activism. This was another issue raised in the Libertarian Impeachment Resolution, which said the Trump administration had targeted, quote, illegal U.S. residents for deportation due to their political viewpoints, unquote. Those the administration is trying to deport include Rumsia Öztürk, a 30-year-old Turkish doctoral student at Tufts University who the Department of Homeland Security accused of, quote, engaging in activities in support of Hamas, unquote, though no evidence to this effect was provided. Trump survived two impeachment attempts during his first term in office. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out what people are saying. Speaking to Newsweek, Ted Bryan, a former Libertarian Senate candidate who wrote the Travis County resolution, said, quote, "I was driven to write the resolution due to Trump's immigration policies. I also particularly oppose his trade policies, but the fundamental human rights violations that have come up in the immigration area have been just too much to handle. The Libertarian Party is a pro-immigration party, and I am very pro-immigrant. Quote, now Trump is trying to deport legal residents because of their political views and even wants to deport American citizens. This is not acceptable in any way. We are at the stage where we have to nip this in the bud before it goes any further. The Constitution and Bill of Rights must be upheld and defended, including the rule of law and due process of law. Trump is an authoritarian bully who has no interest in any of those, and hence he is violating his oath of office and should be removed from it, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out what the Libertarian Party resolution reads. The Libertarian Party of Travis County resolution reads, quote, whereas the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia affirmed by a unanimous U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the government must facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador, and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Quote, whereas President Donald J. Trump and members of his administration admit then ladies and gentlemen, then is supposed to be that, not than. An administrative error was made to send Kilmar Abrego Garcia to an El Salvadorian prison, yet say there is nothing they can do about it, when in reality they choose to do nothing about it. This is 100% true, ladies and gentlemen. Quote, whereas President Donald J. Trump and his administration have violated the constitutional rights of numerous legal U.S. residents by denying them due process of law in challenging deportation orders. Quote, whereas President Donald J. Trump and his administration have targeted legal U.S. residents for deportation due to their political viewpoints in disregard of the First Amendment. Quote, whereas President Donald J. Trump has falsely used the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 and other laws to effectuate removal of legal residents when he should have known that these laws involve wartime measures, not law enforcement measures. Quote, whereas President Donald J. Trump stated that he wants to send U.S. citizens to foreign prisons where they would certainly have no due process of law. Quote, whereas no one in the U.S. appears to be safe from President Donald J. Trump's lawless, dictatorial pronouncements that he issues as executive orders, which he asserts have force of law when they actually violate the constitutional separation of powers. Quote, whereas the Libertarian Party stands to for upholding the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights, and for respecting the rule of law over dictatorial and tyranny. Quote, and whereas President Donald J. Trump took an oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the U.S. Constitution of the United States with no obvious intention of doing so. Quote, therefore, be it resolved that the Libertarian Party of Travis County calls for the impeachment of President Donald J. Trump and his removal from office. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out what happens next. It remains to be seen whether this resolution will be one-off or whether other Libertarian Party branches will pass similar motions. The Libertarian Party claims to be the third biggest political party in the United States, and Trump addressed the Libertarian National Convention in May 2024, though some of the audience booed him. Updated 4/17/25 2:16 p.m. Eastern Time. The story has been updated with comment from Libertarian Party of Travis County, resolution author Ted Brown. Well, ladies and gentlemen, looks like that's going to do it for today's legal breaking reporting. If you did enjoy today's legal breaking reporting and analysis breaking video, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make sure that you never miss a brand new legal breaking reporting, please be sure to hit the bell icon and hit the all notifications option. That is right next to the subscribe subscribe button down below. It does not cost anything. It is located below the screen here, directly on the right hand side of the subscribe button. Thirdly, you guys can also stay up to date on all things legal breaking by following me on my social medias. I will have those linked down below. I am on Instagram, Snapchat, Threads, as well as TikTok. Fourthly, ladies and gentlemen, Please help me reach and achieve the goal of 160 plus subscribers. The reason why I'm saying 160 plus subscribers is because right after we reach and achieve the goal of 160 subscribers, we have more subscribers to reach and achieve right after we reach and achieve the goal of 160 subscribers. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, until my next reporting, please stay safe, stay positive, and know that justice will prevail on the correct side of the law despite Donald Trump and his illegal, unconstitutional lawlessness and rigid regimen's lawlessness and illegal executive orders and actions and behaviors.